Hey fellas, your commissioner here coming at you for a little week 13. Week 13 of NFL action. As you can see, Old Broders is back. He's back in the mix, minus a few teeth, 16 or 17 or so. He's feeling good. He's feeling spry. Sorry for the delayed State of the Union this week. Obviously, it couldn't deprive y'all of two State of the Unions this season. One was more than enough. So better late than never, as they always say. Thanksgiving, it always can kind of be a little bit of a weird schedule for doing Soto. Karen came down on Thursday for Thanksgiving. She just left this morning. Of course, she only comes down here like once a year. It takes some monumental life event to get her to come down here, whether it's us getting married or, in this case, us buying a new home. It's one of those things, we got to maximize the time while she's here. So, didn't want to take away from that, so that kind of led to the delay. Obviously, I had to kick her out because, got to get this thing done. But, let's see, what else? Hopefully everybody had a really good Thanksgiving. I'm sorry I didn't get to post a nice, sweet message about how grateful and thankful I am for all you guys. I'm sure it would fall on deaf ears for most of you, given the trade that Wilson and I made of me bending him over a barrel and showing him the 50 states a couple weeks ago. Arguably one of the most lopsided trades in league history. You guys know all these things. I don't need to tell you. You guys already know, right? But we'll get into it later, right? We'll get into it very soon. The football team, obviously, we closer game than should have been against Louisiana Tech. We did get that dub last week. Basketball team can't beat anybody with a pulse. Unfortunately, it's kind of sad to see. Had a good time down in Houston with old Plunk and Nick and Savoy. It was a great time. We had some Korean barbecue, had some fried rice, had some pizza, had probably some of the best popcorn I ever had. I really have been meaning to text Connor and ask him what brand it was and how they prepared it, because it was just buttery, it was flavorful, it was delicious. Some really good popcorn. The Plunks certainly know how to host well, so we appreciated them. And I think about almost 3 of the 5 of us, including Alexa, ended up puking after El Tiempo night. But it's just the price you pay for going to El Tiempo and then getting some more drinks later. So without further ado, let's go ahead here and get into a recap of last week's matchups. We'll start off with the game of the week, which was what was it? What video game is that from? Of course, we had our special guest appearance for the Wilson. It's wonderful, probably his best work. Let me take a moment here to shout out Wilson, the gift that keeps on giving. Quite appropriate that he decided to make this video, this statement, before on the heels, I guess, of this trade. But really, I think some of his best work, and I hadn't seen it. I just kind of cut it in sight unseen a little bit where I thought made the most sense. And so I was really proud of him, and I'm proud of Wilson. He's here for a good time, right? He's here for fun. He's here for the camaraderie, the fellowship of the league, and you need guys like that. Now Wilson, in hindsight, would he have made this trade again? No, right? But you never know. You just never know, right? He had his own reasoning for thinking it was a good trade for him at the time. And, hey, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. So But it was really, really well done. Probably my favorite video that he's done up until this point. And anyway, so yeah, game of the week. What was it? Fruit roll up. That's right. That's what I was thinking. It was the fruit roll up. Now, who was it? You're gonna be smacking on that.
Yeah. All right. So.
Yum.
Two-tone hog mollies living on burrow time.
Oh yeah, the Battle of the Duke Boys. Them Duke Boys are at it again. Let's see. So the battle. Oh, and it was also almost our dog shit team of the week. Only 2 teams below 100 points last week. Hawk does win 119-90. A little bit of a. If ever there was a week to catch Hawk, it was a week without Burrow. He had no Burrow, no James Cook, no Jamar Chase. I mean, his lineup basically was what it was. He didn't really have much options on the bench. And somehow he's able to eke out a way against Nick's lifeless corpse of a team. Only 90.15 points from Nick. Outside of Bo Nix and Jonnu Smith, combining for almost 60 points. 2 points from Estime, 4 points from Brian Robinson, less than 10 points from Marvin. Bet you're really glad you held on to him and didn't trade him to me. George Pickens, less than 10. Tillman, 3 points. Jaden Reed, 6 points. No Chase Brown, no Garrett Wilson. He doesn't start Andrews. Not that it really would have mattered much. He's got 3 backup running backs on his bench. Really kind of all up and down his roster. Not good for Nick. He's 5-7. He's pretty much done. I mean, there's a slim chance, I guess. I'll kind of talk about playoff scenarios just a smidge here soon. But I mean, 5-7. You're, with the points that he's scored, which haven't been many. He's got a very, very uphill battle to have a chance of making the playoffs. It's going to take him winning the next 2 games to get to 7-7. Excuse me, that time of year, and getting some luck from people up at the top. So don't see that happening quite personally. Next here we got keeping the faith versus all you need is love. I'm sorry, we had 3 teams below 100 points last week. I win 161-98.65. 161 square on the money. I don't know how many times this season we've seen no decimals, just 0.00. Obviously, the talk of the town, Saquon Barkley, 2 70-plus yard touchdown runs on Sunday night against the Rams. Had almost a 50-burger. Cortland Sutton had 2 tutties. I mean, between those 2 guys, I had, 80 points. Anytime you get 2 guys combined for 80 points, it's going to go a long way. It's going to go a long way. For Rip, honestly, he had solid games from a lot of his guys. Goff kind of underwhelmed, only 20 points from him. His quarterbacks, what are you going to do? Not that Love did much better, but, he picks up Abdullah. Great pickup, had almost 20 points. His best game of probably his career, fantasy-wise. He had Chuba go for 17, continues to be the workhorse there in Carolina. Jameson had an okay game. Kupp had a good game, long touchdown. And then you got 0.4 points combined from 2 guys, Isaiah Likely and Christian Watson. Why Rip didn't go after Jonnu Smith is a mystery to me. He continues to put his faith in Isaiah Likely, who's had maybe 2 relevant games all season. 3, Juwan Jennings, with Brandon Allen kind of floundered, right? That whole offense kind of floundered. He had no ETN, he had no Breece Hall, he had no Kyle Pitts. He leaves Jordan Addison on the bench, 32 points there. He swaps him out for Watson. We're looking at a closer game, right? Looking at a closer game. I mean, Rip gets up to the 132, which would have been huge for his points for because he's struggling in that department quite mightily. But, honestly, the 161 for me, it was kind of, I don't know, a little fugazi, I thought. I mean, McCaffrey continues to not look great. Tracy did not look good. I left Bucky on the bench for 27 points instead of Tracy. I leave Keenan Allen on the bench. He had 24 points. DK has not been good really this season. Not been anywhere near what I would hoped he was going to be. Ladd's been extremely solid. Bowers had a down game, but huge to get to 500. Get me to 6-6. Get me to the 5 seed. Get me in the mix. I mean, I feel pretty good. If I win one out of these last two, about being in. Now it's still possible, even if I win one out of two, that I could be out. It's possible that I could lose two and still be in. It's possible that I could win two. If I win two, I'm in no matter what. I mean, just with the people that I play, it's kind of one of those things. The last several years, old Kanish, he's controlled his destiny for the most part, and it's usually not gone well. It's usually not gone well, and it's we'll see. We'll see. Is this team? I mean, this is if any team is the team, man, this team's clicking. So, anyways, next we have probably maybe the highest scoring game. Yeah, highest scoring game of last week. The McCockners versus the Swamp Donkeys. JD wins 164-127. Huge win for JD. I mean, huge. This goes a long way and helping him get a playoffs berth. I mean, if he lost this game, he was going to be struggling. He would basically probably needed to win out. Now, really, as long as he doesn't go 0-2 these next 2 weeks, he should be in. He should be in based on his record alone, despite him being fourth lowest points scored in the league. And for Blaine, he's obviously he falls to 5-7. Still the third most points in the league. By a decent margin on fourth, fifth, whatever. It's one of those things where, as it sits right now, Blaine could lose out. And he would still, more likely than not, he's going to be in the playoffs no matter what. I mean, it would take his team just completely shitting the bed the next 2 weeks of scoring less than 100 points routinely to give a chance for some of these other teams to maybe catch up. And even then, it's extremely unlikely. So really, for Blaine, he's kind of, in my opinion, he's kind of done enough work already with this 6 seed automatic qualifier that we instituted this season. He's going to be in the playoffs pretty much no matter what. So now, I feel like I've said that about teams before, Wilson. And somehow, some way, you just never know with this league. You just never know. I mean, these last 2 weeks, things just seem to get turned upside down. If there's a chance of something happening, more times than not, something's going to happen. So, not out of the woods yet, but strong win for JD. He really needed it. I mean, Murray, Gibbs, Jones, Collins, DJ Moore, TJ Hawkinson, all over 20 points. Dobbs only had 10 and Rachaad White had 13, but I think this is the potential that JD's team has and kind of what's allowed him to get to this. Now, some of these guys can kind of disappear sometimes, but it's one of those things where, JD's capable, man. I mean, he's proven it. He wouldn't be 7-5 if he wasn't, despite the low amount of points for. He's got Nico back. Looks like Nico's firing, getting ramped up. DJ Moore's been coming on with the strong passing game of the resurgence of the passing game in Chicago. But, like I said, for Blaine, I mean, Mahomes, he got a spot start from Justice Hill, 14 points to kind of, again, I mean, that's huge because, right, if he doesn't get Justice Hill, he probably gets a guy who gets 0 points or, gets maybe 3 or 4. And that 10 points could prove to be vital, come the end of the season. You just never know. I mean, this thing is going to be tight towards the end, folks. I'm telling you. And any little points that you leave on your bench or you leave on the wire or you get lucky and you get the right waiver guy or you make the right lineup decision, all these little decisions throughout the season, they're going to matter at the end of the year. That's why at least every week for me, I'm watching. I'm making sure I'm not leaving too many points on the bench, because it might cost me. It might cost you, So, but to put up 124 or 127 without his two studs and Bijan Robinson and Taysom Hill, you got to admire that. Obviously, Njoku had a tough game, but Puka's great. Amon's solid. Blake's got an extremely solid team. But next we got doesn't contribute, doesn't like being above 500. The father figures versus doesn't contribute. Arguably, maybe one of the biggest upsets so far of the season. Ford wins 141 to 123 to drop Craig to a 3-game losing streak. 3-game, get your 3 goggles on, to get to 6-6. He found his way. And listen, all right, listen. I wasn't saying I wanted to see this, guys. You listen. If you watch the State of the Union, no, I did not say that I want to see this. I just said it would be funny if this were to play out this way, and especially to have Ford be the one to put you on this 3-game losing streak to fall to 6-6. It was a huge win for Ford to get to 5-7. He loses this game. He is sitting dead last in the standings, which puts him back-to-back horse ass. Now this gives him some life, right? This gives him some life. Well, he would have been close. I'm sorry. He would have been only about 15 points up on Rip, but he would have been sitting at 11th rather than 9th. So this gives him a little bit of a chance. 5-7 again. His points for is slightly better than Nick. Nick actually has the lowest amount of points scored in the league by a whopping 1 point. So he's still very much in the mix for a horse ass berth. Man, wouldn't that be something? For Josh, it's still very much an uphill battle for him to have a chance of making the playoffs again. We've got 4 teams at 5-7. We got 2 teams at 4-8. The 2 teams that are 4-8, they're done. They're eliminated. That's just point blank. Period. They're not going anywhere. The teams that are 5-7 have a shot. It pretty much requires them to win out and get lucky because their points for is not good. It's not. Other than Blaine's. Blaine's is very good. But yeah, for Josh, he's doing this with no Alvin Kamara, no Devontae Smith. How's this guy going to win? How's this guy going to put up 141 points, right? There's no way. Craig was down Josh Allen, though. He was out Dalton Kincaid. So he's forced to start Javonte Williams, who had a whopping 8 carries and -2 yards. Ooh, buddy. But really, JSN's been good. A.J. Brown's been good. He had 45 from them, 46. Spot start from Sam Darnold was good, 31 points. Kyron's kind of turned back into a pumpkin, unfortunately. You hate to see that. James Conner's been a little bit wishy-washy the last, I guess he had a bye and then a bad game. But Tua, right? Ford picked up Tua, sniped him from Nick a couple weeks ago, I believe. And that was a huge catalyst for Ford to get this win, because if Ford starts Russell Wilson, like he would have if he hadn't got Tua, he loses this game. If he starts Russell Wilson. So Ford basically won this on the back of Tua. CD had just enough. Pittman had one of his best games of the season. Ertz has been really good as well the last few weeks. Got a little bit out of McLaughlin. Got enough out of Kenny. And that's the way the cookie crumbles. Craig, sorry, buddy. 6-6. Hey, he's got 2 more games, right? He could get 2 games clear of 500, or he could win one, lose one, stay there at 7-7. Wouldn't that be something? Regardless of how this record plays out, I think Craig has cemented himself on the ballot for the Jeff Fisher Award. Regardless if he goes 6-8 or he goes 8-6 or he goes 7-7. Now, whether he wins it or not probably will be dependent on these games, how these next two games play out. But he's back on there. There's a chance 3 weeks ago he might have finally got himself off the ballot, but 6-6 with only 2 weeks left in the regular season. You're on that ballot again, buddy. Can the dynasty continue? Let's see. I'd love to see it. Let's see what else we got. We got the Golden Path. A week of upsets, guys. This was a huge week of upsets. I mean, two of the biggest ones we've had. I mean, Savoy looking like he was also a shoo-in for horse ass, desperately in need of a win, playing the top team in the league. Connor, the Dirty Birds of War, on a roll, and somehow, some way, finds a way to win 146 to 125, gets to 4-8, drops Connor to 9-3. Plunk is still pretty much secured a bye. Not fully. If he won this game, he would have been fully confirmed as a bye week. He could still go 0-2. That's basically the only. He wins one game, he's guaranteed a bye, and most likely the 1 seed, really. But 146 to 125. The crazy ending of the Dallas game gave Savoy life. I mean, Savoy was dead, but he gets that. Jaden Daniels gets that long touchdown to Terry, brings them back in it. Montgomery had a nice game. Hopkins had a nice game. Vele, great, 16 points from him. Schoonmaker had 15. Pollard, we got to see that live in the flesh, had 24 points, one of his best games of the season. I think. Was it his best game? It might have been his best game of the season, actually. Yeah, it was his best game of the season. They just kept feeding him, pounding the rock, pound it. And, for Connor, he obviously, no real buys he was dealing with other than London. He leaves Chubb on the bench, can't blame him there. McBride absolutely feasted, had 30 points with no touchdowns. That's pretty crazy. That's tough to do. Odunze was just so-so. Jefferson had his worst game of the year, It's just the stars aligned. The stars aligned. I mean, in a game where Minnesota puts up 30 points, Jefferson only has 5.2 points. It'd be tough to see or tough to surmise that. Mixon had one of his worst games of the season. Probably the worst game that he's played fully. Only 10 points from him. And really, that was kind of carried on 5 little dump-offs, 5 for 23. That's a Wan'Dale Robinson stat line if I've ever seen it. And Jalen Hurts kind of came crashing back down a little bit, 24. So, I think Connor's okay, right? He's still got an extremely talented roster. He'd rather probably get this dud game out of the way now. But Connor's fine. He's still, in my opinion, my mind, the front runner to win the whole shebang. But hey, weeks like these happen, right? Weeks like these happen. You never know. Even gods can bleed, right? Even a god can bleed. I mean, he's lost 3 games this season, guys. I mean, he's not untouchable. Like Lord Voldemort and Harry Potter. I can touch you now. Maybe that Saquon trade maybe sent shockwaves through the Dirty Birds front office. Got them second guessing things a little bit. Thinking, hey, they've been on cruise control, guys. Let's just be honest. The Dirty Birds have been on cruise control pretty much the vast majority of this season, right? I mean, it's been extremely low maintenance for Connor. He's made a couple snake oil trades, right? He's had a couple. He's not really had any good waiver wire pickups. He had a solid draft. He supplemented that with a couple good trades, and even one trade that really didn't work out for him. But even that still is not gonna hurt him that bad. Because he had so much kind of resiliency built into his team. Then a little scrappy, scampy team. Makes a big-time trade, maybe the biggest in league history, and got his guys firing on all cylinders currently, and maybe, getting a little nervous, maybe taking the eye off the ball a little bit, you never know. So, and maybe, hey, the Bengal boys, they're coming, they're good, they can win any given week, they can win it for him. Duncan, somehow, some way, Duncan finds another way to win. 6-game winning streak. This guy just made himself into the record books. 6 wins or more, 6 losses or more, you get in the record books. He's on it. He's in it. Duncan's team was dead. It was dead. He's 8-4. He only has 517 points scored. He's got the least amount of points against, 410, by a large margin. How is he the Chiefs? I mean, how long is his magic going to continue? How long is his magical run going to continue for Duncan? He's fighting for a damn bye. He could get a bye. Duncan, remember at the beginning of the season? Wow, isn't that crazy? He played our dog shit team of the week. Throw up all over themselves. Daughter's ashamed of him. Piss poor. Slinging caps, slinging drinks, slinging. The gift that keeps on giving team of the week. Flo's ashamed. Newly rebranded Flo's ashamed. Dylan Wilson, 85.05 points. Oh, Wilson. Thursday night looked pretty good. I got to admit, right? Thursday night looked pretty good. Jerry Jeudy, 17 points. Judy's been good. Now, guys, you say what you want about Jeudy. Judy's been good. Now, has he been as good as Keenan Allen's been the last 2 weeks? No. But he's been good. All right, he's been good. 17, 27, he had 16, 15. He's on a heater. Jameis has got him heated up. All right. Lamar, also very good, right? 30 points, solid. Solid from him. Jonathan Taylor, 2.5. Tyler Lockett, 4.5. Deebo Samuel, 3.6. Sam Laporta, 4.5. 4.9. Kareem Hunt, 14 points. No Darnell Mooney. No Gesicki. No MVS. That's really what, he was facing an uphill battle. No MVS, right? No MVS. Eckler, concussed. Dead, probably. Yeah. Sammy P, it hurts me to see him performing like this. It really does. It really does. He's been extreme, probably one of the biggest busts. If I hadn't traded Wilson's, the keeper rights for Sam Laporta last year, then, he probably would have gone, third round? Easily would have been probably the worst draft pick this season. Shit, I might have drafted him. You know what I mean? Just extremely odd. Just an extremely odd. Now, granted, he had a lot of touchdowns last year, right? Those touchdowns aren't really happening this year yet. But, JT, 11 carries, 35 yards, no targets, fumbled, didn't lose it, but fumbled. Schedule's only going to get tougher. Anthony Richardson's not going to make it any easier on him. Saquon had 50 points last week, right? Wilson doesn't make that trade. Wilson wins this week. Last week, he gets to 6-6. He's got a chance. 5-7 now. It's going to be tough. Duncan puts up 121. A little bit underwhelming game from him. 31 from Jacobs. 21 from McLaurin towards the end of the game. This was an ugly game, right? If Terry doesn't get that long touchdown, 77-yard touchdown, Duncan's barely cracking 100, right? Ramondre did nothing. Tyreek has just continued it's just not him this season. He's kind of maybe over the hill. No pun intended. Get it. K. Doughton has kind of come crashing back down. He had no Brian Thomas. He didn't start Jacoby Myers for whatever reason, even though Jacoby continues to just put up monster totals, monster games. He's scared to play him. Scared to change his lineup. That's what's going to kill Duncan, I think, this season. He's scared. He's scared to make a trade. He's scared to make a lineup change. He wants to just keep rolling with the status quo, rolling as is. And hey, it's working. It's working. Is that gonna hold up? How long? I don't know, Jim. We'll see. He starts Drake May, 20 points. No Purdy. We'll see. I think he's been very fortunate, and I think he'd be the first to admit that. But we've seen far too often in this league the inability or hesitancy or, whatever another synonym for that is, to make a move of any kind, whether it's just in your starting lineup, whether it's on the waiver, whether it's making a trade. It has killed promising teams in years past. It kills teams every single season. Either it keeps them out of the playoffs or it's their Achilles heel in the playoffs whenever things get ratcheted up a little bit. You know, it's one of those things. It's kind of, it's like Ford, right? I think Ford's the epitome of this. Ford is been spurned, he's scared, he's seen what other people happen, whatever have you, right? Whether he's lost a trade before really badly, I can't recall. He seems to think that he has, and I seem to think he has. But he's been, spurred. He doesn't want to make a trade. He doesn't want to make a move. He's people I've found in this league are more worried about not getting last than they are about winning the championship. I mean, that's just my observation, right? I think people are more scared about getting last and getting horse ass and having to be punished than they are at the promise and the hope of winning the whole thing. And I think that plays out. You see that with the moves or lack thereof that people make throughout a season. There's several owners that fall victim to this. Ford, Rip, Duncan, JD. And now, granted, two of those guys have won titles. One of those guys has been the number one overall seed. Another one of those guys used to be in the playoffs every other year. Granted, whenever we were playing with nobodies and the league wasn't what it was, kind of like whenever Nick won. That's the same time when Nick won 2 of his 3 titles, the kind of asterisk Mickey Mouse titles, you know what I mean? It's kind of like the Yankees early on when they were beating plumbers and carpenters. Kind of like those kind of titles, you know what I mean? You got to make moves, guys, and sometimes you're going to get burned, and sometimes it's going to pay off, right? But you can't be scared to make a move, right? This league used to be crazy with trades. It used to be so active all the time. In the last few years, it has grinded to a halt, and I got to think that it's a direct correlation with around the same time that we started instituting severe punishments on a yearly basis. So, it is what it is. You guys, you do what you want to do. You run your league, but I think we've seen direct the lack of parity as far as championships go. The last 5 years of Connor and Blaine having a stranglehold on the championships have been a direct result of this. These are guys that are willing to take chances, willing to take risks, willing to do what it takes to try to go for it all and win a title. And they've been rewarded for it. And, most of the other leagues not. And if you don't have that, then it makes it easier for guys to just run up the score on the rest of us smucks. And, I'm for one am sick and tired of it. It has to stop. Whether it's me, whether it's Hawk, whether it's Duncan, whether it's JD, Craig, Blaine, somebody. Not Blaine. Take that back. Blaine's had his time in the sun. Although I would like to see him win more than I would like to see Connor if I was doing a power rankings. Which, maybe they'll come back next season. Probably will. Maybe in a different format. We'll see. Like I said, nobody really seemed to, I don't know, just wasn't having the same pop as they used to. But anyway, quickly here, some playoff scenarios, right? So, like I said, Connor, Duncan, and Hawk, they're all 3. They have clinched playoff berths. They are in no matter what they do. Now, granted, they could still lose buys. Very, very, very unlikely for them to do so. Connor's in one more win. He's secured a bye. He would have to go 0-2. Hawk and Duncan would both have to go 2-0 to be able to secure a first-round bye. Which, is that possible? Are they playing each other? Or it is possible. Interesting. For JD, 7-5, again, he controls his fate. He's in the driver's seat. He wins 1 out of his next 2. He's probably in. He's probably in based on the way that other people's records are. If he can find a way to get to at least 8-6, I'd have a hard time seeing him be out of the playoffs. Now, he gets to 7-6, and then get to 7-7. It's going to be tough. I don't know that he would get in at 7-7, to be quite honest. Possible, but I don't know. For Craig and myself, we're both 6-6. Again, I mean, we need to win, right? Craig's points for is middling, middle of the pack. Better than JD, better than Duncan. Not as good as Blaine, not as good as mine. Really, for both of us being behind Blaine, Craig's obviously he's down 100 points to Blaine. He's not going to catch up. I'm down about 50 points, 55 points to Blaine. Possible to make that up over 2 games. Again, it's just like, hey, if I start Bucky instead of Tracy last week, right, that's an extra 16 points. Right now, it's only 45 points. Right, if I'd started Pearsall instead of Parker Washington a couple weeks ago, right, that's an extra 18 points. Right now, it's a 30-point gap. Right, but so I said, man, if Blaine doesn't play Justin Hill, right, he might get 14 less points. He probably would have had to start Keaton Mitchell or somebody who got 0, given the situation that he was in. And then, boom, now we're down to 15 points, right? So, I mean, I think it's really cool, adding this 6th seed because, and maybe, I don't know how much y'all are keeping up with it. Obviously, I do these videos every week, so I'm a little bit more tuned into some of this stuff. But, these things, and obviously I'm in the thick of the race here for this spot. So I'm obviously hyper aware of how all of these moves and just for myself and for Blaine specifically, how they play out, right? Like I said, for me, I'm not going to feel good about getting in on the 6 seed automatic qualifier. I don't feel like I'm going to be able to catch Blaine in a points race. And I want to try to get in on merit, the old-fashioned way, right? Old-fashioned, right? Theme. And so, to get to 6-6, Craig, he kind of needs to at least be at 7-7 to have a shot. That kind of same way. Blaine, like I said, his record doesn't really matter. He could get in on record. I mean, if he wins his last 2 games, gets to 7-7, he could go 5-9 and still get in, to be perfectly frank. I mean, given as long as he's putting up 125, 130 points every week, that's probably good enough. If he averages that, like I said, it's going to take him scoring in the low hundreds to really, I think, be at risk of falling out. He probably disagrees with me, but Blaine and I had obviously trade deadline. Blaine and I had a heated text discussion over the trade deadline, and related to a couple different leagues. I'd sent him an offer in another league weeks ago. He wanted to think on it, sit on it. We kind of came back to it and kind of were changing the terms up a little bit. He offered me the same thing that I offered him a few weeks ago, and I told him, hey, I don't know that I want to do that now. I don't know that I need George Kittle whenever I've got Brock Bowers and I've got Trey McBride already in a league, right? Do I need that? Is what he's averaging, is that better than what James Cook would be averaging, or what, another guy that I could put in my start? Would I ever need to start him comparatively to the rest of my lineup? And I had kind of said, go ahead, send it over. I had told him, let me see the offer. I'm close. I'm getting close. I'm thinking I might do it. Throughout all of these discussions, I told him I really wanted another wide receiver in that league. And the opportunity presented itself. I was down in Houston with Connor and his co-owner in that league, and we were able to hammer something out. And, arguably I made a trade for a worse player in Tyreek Hill than George Kittle in that league because it's a tight end premium. So I was strike one, right? I had been working Blaine for a few weeks or a week or so to try to get Tank Dell just for nostalgia, really, personally. Tank's not really done anything special this season. He's been averaging 10 or 11, 12 points a game. I was offering him Bucky for Tank straight up. Seemed opposed to that. Didn't seem interested in that. I said, I'll throw in Pearsall, right? I get Pearsall's irrelevant, right? Didn't want that. Okay, so what else can we do here, right? Let's change the terms. Let's change the terms, not the original offer that I'm pulling now, right? We're changing the terms. So I'm not pulling the rug out from under your feet here, buddy. Okay? And he offers me Tracy. He wants Tracy and Keenan for Tank and Najee Harris. I don't want that. I don't need that, right? I take another look at it. My analytical, I stop thinking with my heart, right? Like I tell you all the time, you can't play this game with your heart, right? You're gonna lose. I play this game with my heart all the time and I lose. I'm a fucking loser. I stink all the time because I play with my heart instead of using brain and logic, right? Sometimes the logic doesn't work either. But the heart hurts you. The heart will hurt you the most. Heart will hurt you than this. At least this you can say, hey, listen, I followed the data, I followed the numbers. It just didn't work out this time. That's okay, right? The heart's like, well, I knew it was probably not a good decision. So Blaine was obviously very upset because he obviously had a chance to boost his chances of winning with a running back that he didn't have last week, which ended up Justice had scored more than Tyrone Tracy did last week anyway. But I looked at it, and Tank has just not been good. And I had to think with my mind and my logic that Tank has not been what I wanted him to be. He's not what he was at the start of his rookie season last year. He's just not. That whole passing offense is not what it used to be. And I wasted Blaine's time. He doesn't ever want to talk to me about fantasy again. He hopes to have a good life, and we can talk about life and things like that. But don't ever waste my time. I pulled the rug out from under him. I pulled offers off the table that were apparently set in stone and ironclad deals. No handshake emojis were sent. If anybody knows me, a deal's not closed with me until I send you the handshake emoji or we shake hands in person in the flesh. Okay, and so up until that time, things are subject to change. And granted, I'm sure a lot of these feelings are stemming from the fact that I got Saquon. And most lopsided snake oil trade, whatever in league history, that's fine. I still love Blaine. I still care about Blaine. I still would like to talk about fantasy and about sports with Blaine one day. Kind of let things sit and simmer, and hopefully we'll be back to that soon. But it just shows that it's funny to me. When the chips are down, right? How you truly feel about this game comes to light, right? That's the way I look at that. Blaine obviously had a rough several years before his last two championships in fantasy. He cares very deeply and is very passionate about this game and about this league, and I love him for that, and that's why he is such a vital and crucial member of this league, and that's why I would like to see him win over Connor, personally. There's other guys I would like to see more. But honestly, Blaine's still probably ahead of several other guys on that list. I won't name names to hurt more feelings, but Blaine, I think, plays this game the right way for the most part. Snake oil, everybody does it if they have the opportunity to do it. You can't knock him for that, right? It's part of the game. It's part of people's skill, I think. It's just, it is what it is, right? It's one of those things. It just is what it is sometimes. And for Blaine, when the chips are down, right, the passion that he had before and the care and the anger that sometimes goes along with this game is starting to kind of rear its ugly head again, right? Because, he had to grind for his championships, but towards the end of the season in both of his championships, things were going good. Things were clicking. He looked like he was pretty much locked into the playoffs, going to have a good shot at winning the title. This year, he's grinding. I mean, he fully believes that I can catch him in points, and there is a chance. I got to admit, there's a chance with the way that my team is now. There's a chance that I could catch him, and his record will matter, and his record could keep him out of the playoffs. So, it's one of those things that we'll just, we'll see. But I love Blaine. I care about Blaine, and I hope the best for the rest of his season. I think it'd be good to see him in the offs. It'd be fun. All right, so game of the week here. I think it's pretty obvious. Of course, but we're gonna stick with what we had. Speaking of Blaine, Swamp Donkeys versus doesn't contribute. Blaine's projected to lose 128 to 154. Excuse me. Craig's got a full lineup. No buys. There are no buys at all this week, right? Yeah, I don't think so. You can't have 3 games on Thanksgiving and a game on Friday and a game on Monday and still be able to fill a full Sunday slate with buys, right? So, underwhelming. Mahomes kind of back, and he's not been able to give up on Mahomes this season, despite Mahomes kind of giving up on fantasy football. 26 points isn't going to kill you. It's okay, But you expect 35 at least from Mahomes. He's not getting that. He had Pacheco in his return, only gets 7. Amon-Ra disappointed with 13. He's got 46 points, but he's already got his quarterback out of the way, his running back, his second best wide receiver. He's going 2 tight end set this week. For Craig, he's got some tougher matchups. I think 154 is a little high for Craig, quite personally. I do think that Craig probably wins this one and gets to 7-6, and then gets pulling back down to 500 next week. So we'll go with Craig in that one. Personally, too, I think it would be funny to see a team that's 5-9 make the playoffs. I mean, never happened before, right? So next we got a very closest matchup of the week. Flow is Ashamed versus All You Need Is Love. 136.37 to 136.57. Rip's at 4-8. Wilson's at 5-7. Rip desperately needs to win to have a chance of getting off of the basement of the standings, getting out of the basement, get out of his mom's basement. He's currently up 49 to 26.5. He had a solid game from Love on Thanksgiving, 28 points. Jameson was okay, 11. Christian Watson was okay at 9. He doesn't start Abdul. He's not starting Addison again. He's not starting Travis Etienne. He's rolling with his guys. You got to love it. Laporta, it was nice to see Laporta. 3 catches, 6 yards, 2 touchdowns. So, for Wilson, so he got 15.6 points. Swift only had 11. The fact that both of these guys are still projected to score 136, given what these guys have done thus far, is kind of surprising to me. I think both of these teams are probably going to settle around the 120-ish range, if not lower than that. Judy's probably going to have Surtain on him the whole game on Monday night. It's going to be tight. It's going to be tough. Debo's kind of been it. MVS, we'll see. I think this one's going to be an ugly one. But I like Rip to win it. I'll go with Rip. Next, we got the father figures, the two-tone hog mollies. Nick's projected to win 166 to 134. Absolutely crucial for Nick to win this game to have any chance of getting the playoffs. And really, him winning this game would more likely than not keep him out of the horse ass. Pretty much guaranteed. He had a great game from Jaden Reed, 20 points, 2 touchdowns on 3 catches. Jonnu's been, waiver wire darling, 23 points. I mean, he's had 23, 26, 30. So trending down. Should have had a touchdown, really, that Tyreek ended up getting. But was that against? Yeah, that was against them. And for Ford, I mean, he keeps throwing. I remember when people laughed at me for dropping Wan'Dale Robinson earlier in the season because he was scoring – 13 points a game, 10, 19, he had a run of 15, 19, 17, right? I'd cut him. He's done 8.5, 8, 4.5, 12, 10, 2.6. So I feel okay. CD, obviously, extremely underwhelmed. Tua continues to be on quite the tear since he's been back. I mean, 35, 43, 39, just tearing through teams, even though the Dolphins kind of stink. So, despite that, I think, the hits of CD and Wan'Dale not doing anything. Devontae, is he going to play? Still questionable. Looks like he might play, potentially. We'll see. A lot of people out walking today. I just think that Nick's kind of got off to a hot enough start. I think Nick's going to win this one and give himself a little bit of hope. Golden Path, living on Burrow time. Hawks 153 to 143. We had good, so we had a solid game from Montgomery, solid game from D-Hop. Everybody's kind of right on projections thus far. We'll go with Hawk in that one. And then Dirty Birds, Kickers Lives Matter. Duncan's projected to win 172 to, Plunk is projected to win 172 to 151. Achan, great. Jacobs was great. Neighbors was good. Tyreek was one of his best games. Kelsey was good. Tougher matchups for for Connor, but I think Jalen Hurts is probably going to go for 45. And I just don't know that you want to be starting Drake May whenever you're trying to get a bye. Quite personally, so we'll go with Plunk to get a bounce back win in that one. All right, then that brings us to our game of the week. I don't have anything. We're already real over on time. Oh well. We'll roll through this quickly here. Our peanut butter filled pretzel game of the week. Kroger peanut butter filled pretzels. They're enlarged to show texture. They're not actually that large. That would be quite something. Quite a genetic modification, feat of engineering, whatever. About 140 calories per 10 pretzels. You got some fat, some sodium, of course, fiber, a little bit of added sugars. It does contain wheats and peanuts, so, it is what it is. Peanut butter filled pretzels. How can you go wrong, right? You gotta love it. Cheers. Yum. Okay. Game of the week. Keeping the Faith versus the McCockners. Now, this was closer before yesterday, and I still think it's going to be a close game. I'm currently projected to win 182 to 154. JD in this league, I feel like, has been my kryptonite. I feel like he's the owner I have done the worst against. I'm pretty sure one of the few owners I have a losing record against. I really need the Hall of Records has fallen into quite the state of neglect and disrepair the last couple seasons. Really need to get back in the lab over the off season and get that cleaned up and fixed. But battle of the quarterback, you got Baker versus Kyler. Kyler's been he had a good game against the Jets. He's been struggling a little bit, kind of up and down. I think he's have a solid game against Minnesota. Baker should hopefully feast against a hapless Carolina defense, but you never know. I mean, those interdivisional matchups can sometimes be a little bit gross and sometimes beat them up. Could potentially still pivot to Herbert. We'll see, but I'll go either Mayfield or Herbert. I'll still give them the edge over Kyler. Battle of the running backs. You got CMC and Saquon versus Jahmyr Gibbs and Aaron Jones. Obviously, Jahmyr disappointed a little bit, only 12 points. Looked like he was off to a feast in the first half, and then he didn't really do anything after fumbling. One of his worst games of the season, maybe his worst game thus far this season. Wow, yeah, his worst game. CMC and Barkley, right? Battle of the wide receiver. You got DK, Sutton, and Ladd versus Nico, DJ Moore, and Shakiri. Shakir's been really solid, really reliable. DJ Moore obviously had another great game, overperformed his projection. I think Nico's going to have a great game. I'm a little bit worried about DK, Sauce Gardner on him. I'm gonna give the edge to JD in that one, but only just. I think it's going to be close, but I think JD has a chance. Nico should feast against Jacksonville. Battle of the tight end. You got Brock and Hawkinson. Big Cock Brock versus Big Cock Hawk. 32 points from Bowers is going to be tough. I think Hawkinson should have a solid game, probably still double digits, maybe 15 points. But tough whenever Brock's already kind of put his nuts on the table. It's tough to. Kind of like with DJ Moore already having 25 points, right? It's kind of so we'll go with Brock in that one. And then battle of the flex, battle of the Tampa Bay running backs. How about that? Bucky Irving versus Rachaad White. It's should be interesting. Rashaad's actually been putting up solid numbers week in and week out. I mean, ever since he got hurt in week 6, I mean, really all season. He's not really been. I mean, he's had like 13 points at least every single week. So, I'll push that one out of respect. I'll push that one because honestly, they both have been performing very well, to be quite honest. Obviously, I left some points on the bench. I mean, 16 out of Tracy. I was this close to swapping out DK for Keenan. Of course, Keenan goes for 25 points, but I'm sure DK won't sniff that. He'll be lucky to get 10. That's what I'm saying. I think it's going to be a little bit closer. Obviously, Brock puts me in a great position. I still don't think I'm going to get close to 182. It'd be cool if I did. I think JD has a very good shot at getting close to 150, but I think I'll go with myself on that one. So need it. It would be huge. Falling to 6-7 would basically make week 14 a must win. So anyway, that's all I got this week, fellas. Hogs are playing shortly here at 2:30. Everybody, good luck this week. Stay safe out there. Hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving, travel safely and all that, and got back to where you're going or where you live. Thankful for you guys. I love all of you guys. Again, like I said, this league wouldn't be what it is without you guys. So it was fun seeing some of y'all this last week. Hope to see some of y'all, more of y'all soon. As always, we pick.